If this were you, if your legs had given out, your breath torn from your chest, your hands numb and bleeding, and the weight of a stone heavier than your own life pressing you into the ground, would anyone stop? Would anyone step out of the crowd, knowing the cost, knowing the blows would come, knowing survival itself was already uncertain? Or would you be left there on the cold stone, learning in your final moments what it feels like to be completely alone? This is not a story about strength in the way we usually understand it. It is not about victory or escape or triumph. It is a story about pain, fear, and a single choice made in a place where choices were punished. It is a story about what happens when one human being refuses to let another disappear. April 4th, 1945. Flossenbürg concentration camp, Germany. By this point in the war, time itself felt broken inside the camp. Days bled into one another, marked only by hunger, shouting, and exhaustion. The prisoners no longer asked how long they had been there or how much longer they could endure. Survival had shrunk into something smaller than hope. It became about the next breath, the next step, the next moment without pain. The quarry was one of the cruelest places in Flossenbürg. Massive granite stones were cut from the earth, each one weighing more than a starving body could reasonably carry. Prisoners were forced to haul these stones up steep, uneven steps carved into the rock. The steps were slick with dust, blood, and sweat. Falling was common. Getting back up was not. SS guards lined the path, watching, waiting. Their sticks and rifle butts were never still. Every stumble was an invitation. Every pause was an excuse. Among the prisoners that day was a teenage boy named Jacob. He was still growing, his body not yet finished becoming what it was meant to be. Hunger had hollowed him out. His clothes hung loosely from his frame. His hands were cracked and raw, his shoulders bruised from days of carrying stone far heavier than himself. Jacob had already made the climb countless times. Each step felt like lifting the world. His lungs burned, his vision narrowed. The stone pressed into his back, grinding him downward. Halfway up the steps, his legs betrayed him. He fell. The stone slammed against the granite. Jacob collapsed beneath it, his cheek pressed to the cold rock. For a moment, the world went quiet. Not peaceful, empty. Like his body had decided it could no longer continue the argument with reality. Shouts broke the silence. The guards noticed immediately. Boots approached. Voices sharpened. Jacob knew this moment. Everyone did. If you could not rise, you were beaten until you did, or until you stopped moving altogether. He tried to push himself up. His arms shook violently. Nothing happened. The first stick was already lifting into the air. Then something unexpected happened. An older prisoner stepped forward. He did not shout. He did not argue. He moved quickly, deliberately, as if his body already understood the decision before his mind had time to question it. He grabbed Jacob under the arms and dragged him out of the direct path, pulling him close, bracing the boy's weight against his own exhausted body. The guards reacted instantly. Anger. Blows fell. The older man took them without protest. Jacob felt the man's body tense with each strike, felt the sharp inhale of pain against his own chest. The stone was pushed aside. The work resumed. The guards shouted for them to continue. Together they stood. The older prisoner positioned himself slightly behind Jacob, one arm steadying him, the other forcing his own body to keep moving. Jacob's legs barely responded. His vision swam. He could feel his heart pounding against the other man's ribs. They climbed. Every step was punishment. Every breath scraped raw lungs. When Jacob faltered, the man tightened his grip. When the guards struck again, the blows landed on both of them. Around them, other prisoners watched. No one could step in. Everyone knew that more bodies would only mean more punishment. But quiet words traveled through the air, barely audible, carried on breath and desperation. Encouragement, witness, a silent promise that this act was seen. The climb did not end quickly. Minutes stretched into hours. The sun shifted. Muscles screamed. The older man's strength faded, but his resolve did not. He adjusted his stance, leaned harder, bore more weight than his body should have been able to hold. Jacob later said that in those hours, he stopped thinking about himself. He focused only on staying upright for the man who refused to let him fall. Survival became shared. Pain became shared. Even fear became shared. At some point, the guards lost interest. New victims drew their attention. The two prisoners were left to continue their work under the same merciless rules, but no longer singled out. Jacob survived that day. He survived the camp. The older man did not. Jacob never learned exactly when he died. There were too many deaths, too many names swallowed by the machinery of cruelty. But Jacob carried him forward, not in memory alone, but in meaning. Years later, Jacob spoke about that day. He said survival was not only about physical endurance. It was not only about resisting hunger, cold, and pain. It was about having someone, just one person, who refused to let you disappear when the world had already decided you were expendable. That act did not change the camp. It did not stop the guards. It did not end the suffering. But it saved a life. And in a place built to erase humanity, it proved that humanity could still choose to exist. If this were you, if you were the one collapsing under a weight you could no longer carry, would someone step forward? And if you were standing nearby, knowing the cost, would you? This is why we remember, not only the cruelty, but the courage, not only the deaths, but the defiance, not only the darkness, but the hands that reached out inside it. Flossenburg Quarry, 1945. Never forget. Evil does not begin with cruelty alone. It begins when people look away. But goodness, real goodness, often survives in the smallest, most dangerous choices. One hand reaching out. One body standing between violence and vulnerability. One person deciding that another life is worth the cost. This story reminds us that we do not need power, weapons, or safety to be human. Sometimes, humanity is simply refusing to let someone fall, even when the world tells you to protect only yourself. If you ever wonder whether one act matters, remember this: one act saved Jacob's life. And that life carried the memory of courage forward, long after the camp was gone. If this story moved you, if it made you pause, reflect, or feel something deep inside, then this channel is for you. We share stories that history tried to bury, stories of pain, courage, and the human spirit that refused to die. Subscribe to remember. Subscribe to learn. Subscribe so these stories are never forgotten. And if you believe humanity still matters, even in the darkest times, stay with us.